Ukraine says it carried out large-scale drone attacks on multiple air bases, including some thousands of miles inside Russia. It says Operation Spiderweb caused $7 billion in damage. A Ukrainian military source said multiple combat planes were destroyed in the attack. Russia has confirmed there was an attack, but is giving few details. CNN's Sebastian Shukla is following the developments for us. Sebastian, what are you learning about this attack?
Yeah, Fred, this is a really audacious attack which has been carried out by Ukraine's intelligence services known as the SBU. And it appears on Sunday they launched from multiple places inside Russia, the key here being inside Russia, attacks on Russian air bases housing strategic military aircraft, things that would go into the sky for surveillance and monitoring purposes and reconnaissance above the skies of Russia and over Ukraine to gather intelligence. What the Ukrainians are saying is that this has been a highly coordinated attack with swarms of drones attacking these Russian air bases all at the same time. And those videos that have been coming out on social media show the devastation and damage that has been wrought on these aircraft, many of them on the tarmac there. There's one in particular, I don't know if we're able to show it. You can see a first-person view, from the drone that shows these planes and drones hitting these planes on airfields or in airfields inside Russia. It is a truly astonishing attack because what the Ukrainians have managed to do is damage some 40 aircraft, as you say, left billions of dollars of damage here for the Russians. And most surprisingly, these have taken place not on the borderlands or the areas of Ukraine where the fighting is going on. One of these, in particular, Irkutsk, is in Siberia. That's 4,000 kilometers away from Ukraine. And so this talks to a much broader, systematic, well-planned, coordinated attack by Ukrainian intelligence, which has really stepped up now and delivered a crucial blow here to the Russians, Fred.
And then how does this attack compare to, previous attacks by Ukraine against Russia?
Yeah, well, this is a big one. And the difference, though, is that this has happened from inside Russia. We have all seen the videos of drone attacks hitting Russian military and infrastructure targets for the past many months. And it has been a coordinated campaign from the Ukrainians. But those have been launched by and large, if not all of them, from inside Ukraine. I have been part of a Ukrainian military intelligence operation to launch drones into Russia, but those drones took off from inside Ukraine. So this marks a major change. We've also seen the Ukrainians been able to push back the Russian Navy in the Black Sea, which has also allowed them to protect their coastline, the Ukrainians to protect their coastline and attacks coming from sea into Ukraine. But this coming from inside Russia is a real game changer, and it will send a message to the Kremlin, Fred, that our operations now are becoming more sophisticated. We have the equipment, we have the hardware, we have the military know-how, and crucially here, we have the intelligence that allows us to operate inside the Russian Federation. And all of this coming at a time, Fred, where the Russians and the Ukrainians are due to meet tomorrow in Turkey to try to hash out or at least make some sort of progress towards bringing into act a ceasefire to stop the fighting in Ukraine, which was supposed to be and is hopefully going to lead to finally the ending of this conflict, which has been going on now, Fred, since February 2022.
All right, Sebastian Shukla, thank you so much. All right, let's bring in Jill Doherty right now. She's a CNN contributor, former CNN bureau chief for Moscow, and adjunct professor at Georgetown University. Great to see you. So you just heard Sebastian. He used the word audacious to describe this attack. How would you describe, I guess, the risk or reflection of improved intel from Ukraine?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the map of Russia and you see where they hit, it's quite astounding. I mean, I think everything that he said is correct. especially from launching it inside of Russia. That meant that they had to get these drones in there. And some details are coming out in the media that will probably have to be confirmed. But it's actually, I could almost use the word creative in the way they did it, very innovative. I think that it is a very big blow to Russia. If you have 40 planes, and these are bombers and intelligence planes, et cetera, that is really huge. And I think also, you have to, again, put it in context. Tomorrow, both sides will be meeting in Istanbul. And this attack comes just days after Russia launched the biggest attack on Ukraine since the war began. I mean, they had drones and ballistic missiles. So we have enormously, increased fighting right now. I was talking to a friend of mine who is Russian, talking to a relative in Moscow, and saying that even the psychological effect of this is quite big, because that friend in Moscow was saying, the war has come to Moscow. It's no longer something that's far away in Ukraine. It is now striking the homeland, and thousands of kilometers and miles into the homeland. It's really significant.
And this is happening on, the eve, loosely speaking, of what is supposed to be continued peace talks involving Ukraine and Russia, this time in Turkey again. So might this impact that?
Well, it probably will, because of the, again, audacity of this attack. But it's very hard to say where those talks are going to go, because the Ukrainians have set out their position and what they think, ceasefire first, and then a long-term solution to the conflict. The Russians have yet to really be precise, but we pretty much know what they're going to say. It's not the ceasefire first. It's this, root causes, as they call it. And what they want is all of Ukraine, essentially. I mean, they want to neuter Ukraine. It won't be able to join NATO. It won't be able to have a substantial military. They want territory. The Russians want territory that they claim in kind of a legalistic way, but they don't even hold it.
Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky is accusing Russia of stalling the peace process, saying, quote, words don't work with Moscow. And according to Ashley Parker's new piece for The Atlantic, it sounds like it might be dawning on Donald Trump. Ashley Parker and Tom Nichols are still with us. So, Ashley, do you really think Donald Trump is evolving on Vladimir Putin?
Yes and no, with maybe more emphasis on no. In this moment, Trump is legitimately frustrated with Putin for a number of reasons. One is that while Trump has real antipathy and sort of genuine animosity for Ukrainian President Zelensky, Zelensky agreed to a ceasefire, and Trump had sort of believed that Putin and Russia would be open to a ceasefire as well. But once the Ukrainians agreed, Russia has not done that. They've shown no willingness towards a ceasefire. And, as someone familiar with the president's thinking explained it to me, he both feels kind of humiliated about Putin, quote unquote, tapping him along, but also he feels like we called their bluff and they're not actually willing to work towards this. And then there is also, and again, this, to be clear, is not new, but there have been photos coming out of the war that are gruesome, that involve children. And we know from past reporting in Trump's first term that these photos do sometimes move the president. It's what got him to agree to greenlight airstrikes in Syria in his first term, and also to issue a rare rebuke against Saudi Arabia when he was shown photos of starving Yemeni children from a Saudi blockade. So we are seeing Trump be more forceful now, but the interesting thing is that even his frustrated, forceful response may end up benefiting Russia, because he has said a couple of times, I was in the Oval Office when this happened and I pressed him on it. He has said, look, this isn't my war. I'm getting sick and tired of it. If these sides won't compromise, I'm going to walk away. The United States will just back out. And to be clear, that's exactly what Putin wants. So in certain ways, Trump is saying, Putin, I'm mad at you. I'm frustrated with you. And I'm just going to throw up my hands and essentially do exactly what you want.
Does he not see that as a loss for himself? Does he not see, is there anybody in his ear telling him that in order to really force Vladimir Putin's hand, he's got to arm Ukraine, which is the one big thing that Vladimir Putin doesn't want the U.S. to continue doing, arm Ukraine and make Ukraine a part of NATO?
So Trump, again, I'm just going to put this in a broader historical context. There have been people since Trump came to power repeatedly telling him, with various amounts of force and at various points, Vladimir Putin is a bad guy. Vladimir Putin doesn't want to negotiate. Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine with no provocation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The way Trump sees this, and this is very clear. And again, when we at The Atlantic went in to interview him a couple of weeks ago, he said as much again. He views this as not his war, not his problem. He's frustrated by it. He believes he inherited it. He believes if he had been president instead of Biden, this never would have happened. And he sort of either wants to get a Nobel Peace Prize from solving it, which seems unlikely, or he wants to wash his hands of it. And if that happens to benefit Russia, right now, that doesn't seem existentially troubling for this American president.
Yeah, and Tom, you write in The Atlantic as well, nothing's going to change until Vladimir Putin sees costs for his actions, actual costs, not just Donald Trump stamping his feet on social media.
Right. As Ashley's pointing out, right now, Donald Trump is threatening to do everything Putin wants him to do. There are no costs other than the policies that already exist, the sanctions that already exist, the weapons that are going to Ukraine. I think part of the problem here is that Trump doesn't understand that.
You can see that this is humiliating for Putin and Trump, but not Zelensky. Remember, Zelensky did the world a grand service when he goaded Trump into that disaster. And maybe it wasn't his intent, right? Like, I'm not saying Zelensky wanted the meeting to go that poorly. A month or two ago now, God, the time all blends together. But, that fated meeting in the White House, in the Oval Office, I'm sure he wanted that meeting to go better. And if Biden or Harris was president, it would have gone better. But he knew how important it was that the world see that the world see how in the tank Trump and his people were to basically let Russia run ramshot over Ukraine and maybe more after, who knows, right? That was their position. Why have you not said thank you? You're in no position to make a deal. And what we see today is that, look, this conflict isn't over, but at least today, Russia lost the war in today's battles. Today was a defeat for them. And it's a sign that things could continue to go poorly for them, especially if Trump's relationships to Putin are exposed. Look, that meeting was what we needed to see. I know for a lot of us, we were, of course, like, obviously Trump is hostile to Ukraine. He blames them for Biden beating him in 2020, insane as that is. And obviously he's sympathetic to Putin. I'm not saying they're necessarily always in full agreement, but he's sympathetic to Putin's right-wing authoritarianism, his Christian nationalism in a lot of ways that's been very predominant. Trump admires the ideology of Vladimir Putin, even if maybe personally, I don't know if they always get along. Who knows? Yeah, he admires his ideology and his strongman status. But the world needed to see that. And when you took what happened in that meeting and then what's happening today, it's a loss for Donald.